So, if you notice a lot of sort of like mechanical note, like it sounds like kind of like rustling around, or my fucking XLR cables are like loose. They're like fucked up now. And I didn't notice until I started editing, and I have to get new ones now. That's not an issue. They're not expensive. It's just like, it just never ends, man. It never ends with this fucking sound equipment. Anyway, that's what the noise is. And it's late because I did my best to get rid of it. I spent a lot of time getting rid of as much of it as I possibly could. Also, my cousin was in town abruptly and kind of messed around with my schedule. And also, my computer is just leaking memory. I don't know. What are you going to do, huh? Maybe go live in the woods. Goodbye.
Journalist. I break new ways of looking at stories. That's what I'm trying to do.
Your daughter's a whore. Religion is a neurological disorder. Cut the schnizzle!
These morons are out there protesting for Hamas.
You don't give women enough credit. They care just as much about politics and issues as men do, and I would say, sorry, they don't.
Americans have got to learn how to take a joke.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to I Hate Bill Maher, a podcast about how I hate Bill Maher. I am your host, Will Weldon. This week, very special guest. She's a comedian, a writer, an actor, an activist, a dog lover, a gal about town.
Don't call me an activist.
She's 4'11"?
No, 5 feet.
And your front door just opened.
No. That's scary.
It is Andrea More. Andrea, thank you so much for being here today.
You really owe me.
So, and I'm probably going to have to fix this anyway because you're an unbelievably quiet person until you laugh.
I can speak up.
Yeah, speak up.
Okay.
So,
Or maybe you shut up.
What?
Sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm a big fan of yours.
So, first thing I normally do on the show, segment called Bill Maher News. There's no Bill Maher News.
No.
There's very rarely Bill Maher News, as comes up frequently.
Even locally?
Well, I don't have like a Bill Maher beat reporter on staff.
There you go. So there might be news that's just not being reported.
That's true. I'm sure there's news in the way there's news for all of us. Also, to the listeners, if you hear a lot of like heavy sighing or thumping around, there's a big dog wandering around, smacking his lips. So no Bill Maher news. So we're
That we know of.
Very true. So we're gonna get right into the questions portion of the show. First question. This is a question I ask every guest. First question. Prior to me asking you to be on the show / talking to you about the show, what is your history with Bill Maher?
In high school, would watch every episode of Real Time with Bill Maher. I loved it. It was a radicalizing force in my life. It's how I became liberal before I became further to the left. And I thought New Rules was really funny. It was like one of my first forays into sort of monologue jokes. Some of them are funny. Because, it's not him writing it. Like, he has a writer's room, so... like there were comedians writing those jokes.
Yeah. Any specific, anything, is there like a specific things about the show you remember that jump out to you?
Well, obviously I remember even in high school finding it kind of odd who he chose for guests. And I don't mean like now I go, oh, it's weird that he only has like centrist and right wing guests. But at the time, like, why is Julie is it Delpy?
I think it's Delphi with the accent.
Like, why is Julie Delpy there?
And I think I know why she's there, but okay, so the guest, like, just because the guests seem weird sometimes, or you notice like an ideological bent?
It just was kind of funny to see like an actor next to a Republican author or like a CNN correspondent next to a comedian. It just felt very strange. And then, he has such a distinctive way of talking. he has so much disdain, I think, for his audience.
Dude, it's crazy. The way he talks about... He's like done interviews now where he'll be like, I mean, in their early years, my audience, they were so stupid and sensitive. Now they're good. And it's because now they just clap. They just clap and laugh at everything he says. But yeah, he doesn't like anyone or anything, I don't think. But, and he'll be like, not a lot of people can do my show, you know? That's the thing. The old show, we'd have anybody
It
on.
really feels like anybody can do his show. Like it's the great equalizer.
He's like, you gotta be able to talk about anything because they don't know what we're going to talk about.
But he can't talk about anything.
I mean, that's the premise of the show, essentially, is he doesn't fucking know anything about anything.
I think...
Did you watch... Well, you might be... Were you old enough for Religulous to be on your radar?
Yes, I watched Religulous and I loved it.
Sure, yeah.
I was probably a very annoying teenager, but this was my first sort of foray into understanding what was going on, like in the Middle East and why it was bad, and then other things filled in the blanks down the road. But I think if you think of Real Time with Bill Maher as a show for high schoolers, it really works. It makes more sense, and specifically high schoolers in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, there weren't much. There wasn't really like better options.
Or if
for
there
you.
were, it wasn't as accessible.
Sure. I guess there was like The Daily Show. Okay, great. Any parental involvement in this, or this was your solo journey?
This was my solo journey. I can't. Maybe my dad watched it. I'm not sure. But I loved Cornel West on this episode. Everything.
Well, so we'll get to the episode.
Okay.
We do this stuff, then we'll get to the episode.
Okay, great.
So
I have to appear not too eager.
That's not the issue. I have structure. People like
Rule Time with Bill Maher over here.
old rules. Old rule. Do the show the same way every single week. Great. So that's so you have a general.
I probably watched every episode because I would go back.
What were the years? Like what years are we talking here?
Probably 2008 through 2012. And I would go back because the episode we watched was from 2003, but I would go back and watch all of the available episodes.
Okay. Jesus. Just thinking about like, I'm sure it was different with your fit, but just imagining like my dad like walking in and seeing me watching like it's like 10 at night on a Friday, and he like comes downstairs and I'm like sitting on the floor watching Real Time. Yeah, I'm jacking off to Bill Maher. I mean, he's whatever. He's a pretty political. I'm trying to portray it like my dad would be like, "Oh, my nerd son," but like my dad is not cool. He's not a sports guy. So now we go to. This is the judgment-free question zone.
No judgment! No judgment! Hypothetical!
Last question I ask everybody, and I'm going through this with you because you're very honest, but you told me you've never listened to the show before, so I'm giving you the thorough rundown.
Will.
So I can edit this however I want.
Great.
Okay. So this is the judgment-free question zone. These 3 questions are just for you. Maybe they apply to somebody else. They could as well. But I've come up with these 3 just for you 5 minutes ago after I said, oh shit, I forgot to write the questions for this episode. I will offer no judgment for how you answer. You can answer however you want. And I won't. I know you probably think that's impossible because I make fun of you all the time for everything. But there will be no judgment for your answers here.
Okay.
Okay. First question. This is sort of the easy. Would you ever go on Club Random?
Yeah, of course.
You would?
Yeah.
Have you seen any Club Random?
Yes, I watched the whole episode with Haley Welch, Hawk Tua. I thought it was great. It made me really like her. I used to be like, I didn't care for her. I'm a big fan now. And I watched the episode.
What about her crypto scam?
Great. I watched I watched his episode with the kids. He is interviewing a kid who acts a little bit, and Bill Maher, there's a very funny moment where he leans in and goes, How did you prepare for the role of playing a child? It was very funny. The kid doesn't get that he's joking. I thought that was kind of the best format, is Bill Maher talking the way he does very seriously to children.
But what about when he's like talking about pornography with those two 11-year-old
Yeah, that
girls?
part sucked. But, you know, he's new to that.
I don't think you need a ton of life experience to know you shouldn't be doing that.
I mean, he, was probably fucked up. So I've seen 2 episodes of Club Random. I watched it in a group setting on a big TV.
So you wouldn't feel weird going to this man's second house right next door to his actual house where he records this stuff and parties?
Maybe I'd feel weird, but I think it's high risk, high reward.
What's the high reward?
I get to be on Club Random. I get to be like, you're an idiot. How do you not know these things? Look at how hypocritical you are. I would tear him apart.
Okay. I was just curious if that's kind of what I was trying to probe. Like, why would you want to do
I
it?
feel like I know so much more about him than the majority of his guests, in part because I don't have that much going on. So I have more time to think about these things.
Sure. Okay. You'd be fine with right, of course you would. I was gonna say, he gets fucking loaded and like smokes so much weed while
Yeah,
he's
I'd
sitting
make
there.
fun of him for that. As a sober person.
I didn't want to out you. I was like, maybe I'll edit that part out if she's like,
I
don't tell
outed me.
anybody.
Shit, I'm gonna be so mad at myself.
Second question. He loves dogs.
He does.
Like the only thing in this
Wait,
world
this is news to me.
Like the only thing in this world he genuinely seems to love is dogs and Israel. He loves dogs
How do you know that?
because he talks about it all the time. He once compared his 2 golden retrievers to people with mental disabilities.
Okay.
That was unpolitically incorrect. That got him in some trouble.
Well, the show's called Politically Incorrect.
Well, the previous, right. Thanks, Bill Maher. Also, that was not a politically incorrect thing to say in the 90s. It was not politically incorrect in the 90s to make jokes about people with, like, mental handicaps.
Oh, yeah. Because weren't the Special Olympics, like, invented in the 90s by a Kennedy?
I don't know, but that sounds right. Yeah, like, do you remember when Obama, he'd just gotten into office and he went bowling and he was like, oh, it's terrible. I was like the Special Olympics out there. And
It's pretty funny.
I mean, that's the thing is it's like, so he shouldn't say that, but that was a joke we had all made in the past, and it was a very humanizing moment to see the
Yeah.
president of the United States make the kind of like immature, crass joke
Yeah.
a lot of us had. Second question, he loves dogs. There's a big dog adoption event. He's the special guest.
Is this real?
No, it could be. I don't think he would ever do anything for charity, but maybe. It through your the foster people they're like, hey, do you want to come? We could use somebody to work this. Would you be willing to do this? You go, yes. You go there. Do you actively avoid him? So it's like a charity function. The dogs are what's important.
Well, this is a bad question.
Here's why. You might be his type.
I don't think I'm his type.
Well-
I have a feeling he likes tall women. For people listening, I'm 5 feet.
He doesn't because he's short and his girlfriends are have always been shorter than him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I avoid him? Yeah. I'm here for the dog.
But you don't take any time to be like, hey, I just want you to know, fuck you or anything like
No,
that.
because I don't think that would have an effect on him. I think the way to get at him is to dissect him and make him feel like the thing that he thinks he's doing is actually very, vapid and clear to people. And I think someone saying fuck you to him, he'll go, well, that person's just an anti-intellectual. And I am.
Let's say you're volunteering at a dog rescue place. They're like, we have to put one of the dogs down, and Bill Maher is holding the dog. Do you nudge the vet so the vet accidentally gives Bill Maher the lethal injection?
Why do you think that a nudge communicates that?
Like you nudge him enough that he goes, oh, and like slips and sticks Bill Maher with it.
Well, that's not how it works as someone who has to put dogs down a lot. There's 2 injections. The first is a deep sedative. So I think I'd nudge the vet in the other direction towards me and be like, just give me the first one.
So third question, you know somebody, they're like an acquaintance. She's like an acquaintance of yours. She's very beautiful, doesn't have a lot of skills, and she's kind of meandering around, kind of aimless. She's like, I'm out of money, I'm broke, I'm going to lose my apartment. You're like, that sucks. People don't deserve to live like that. You hear from somebody else, they're like, hey, my friend Bill Maher is essentially looking for like a sugar daddy, sugar baby situation. Do you know anybody? And you know your friend would probably be open to that.
Yeah.
Do you recommend your friend for this? Specifically with Bill Maher. This is not a sex work judgment.
Well, okay, now she's a friend.
Well, not a friend. Your acquaintance.
Okay,
You don't.
get your story straight.
Well, I have 6 words here, and I've had to fill out all the details as I've been talking.
I can tell.
Do you recommend your friend for this, or not your friend, your acquaintance, or do you go to your acquaintance and go like, hey, how would this be?
Of course.
You don't have no concerns about being specifically about Bill Maher?
You mean, whatever. She can do her own research.
Okay.
Seems like a great deal.
Okay. I don't know. It's look, that's the question. It's up to you how you want to answer.
I just imagine it would start out with something kind of innocuous, like a dinner date, and then she can take it from there.
He says he loves to romance women. He's like, women need to be romanced.
I agree. And that just means talking at them for 90 minutes about different dates in history and then chastising them when they don't know it off the top of their head.
If it were a possibility, I would use a magic wishing well to become a beautiful woman for a day so I could try and go on a date with Bill Maher. Because I just want to know
drive to the West Side. And...
Only once, though. Just the one day.
Can you imagine seeing Bill Maher in like Silver Lake? It's so out of place. It's like almost anachronistic.
So I could only picture him in Silver Lake if he was dressed the way he was when he had Bella Thorne on Club Random.
Okay, I
all black.
happened to miss that episode.
All black like denim jacket, black graphic tee, black jeans. He had like divorce guy bracelets on his wrist. It's my favorite thing to talk about because he would not stop touching her. He kept touching her hand, her shoulder. It ends with him getting down on his knees and begging her to say she forgives him because he made her cry.
I actually like that. I think we need to bring that type of thing back. There's so much indifference these days and playing it cool. Let's bring back begging.
Really, you don't think there's maybe like a halfway point in between begging and...
I do, but it's kind of like you have to go and then it's like
you go too far and then bring it back.
Well, I think you go too far and then the compromise is you land somewhere in the middle.
So now we're going to the real-time recap.
Real-time recap. I hate Bill Maher. You can't change my mind. Real-time recap.
To start, before we get into that, I usually do a quick run-through of some of the topics covered and just some numbers. I also did not have those prepared for this.
Will.
My cousin is in town. My cousin came into town last minute.
That's such a fake excuse.
My cousin came into town last minute and really kind of blew up my schedule. You
have a cousin?
I have many cousins.
That's so weird to imagine.
You canceling yesterday tore my heart out so badly I was unable to get any work done.
Really?
Yeah.
Will.
Yeah, really. Topics covered this week are The Secret Lives of the Bush Family, Hurricane Ivan, The Evils of Antidepressants, The Materialism of Americans, Russia's postponed election, and the ongoing struggle of John Kerry's limp presidential campaign. And now some numbers. 11 million children on antidepressants, 276 cars given away by Oprah, 3 severed heads, 2 Olsen twins, 1 acrylic ass pyramid napkin holder, 10 monologue jokes, 5 new rules, and a seemingly unending series of technical issues that I must deal with. So, how we do the recap, we go in order through the episode, segment by segment. So this is Season 2, Episode 16, and it aired on September 16th, 2004.
I looked it up. That was a year and a half after we invaded Iraq.
Yeah, I think that might have come up on the show, actually.
Okay.
It's
well.
all they've been talking about the entire time I've been doing this podcast. It's so fucking depressing. So first thing, we have the opening comedy sketch. Do you recall the opening comedy sketch?
Yeah, that was brutal.
So the opening sketch is, it's an ad for a service that will Photoshop Abu Ghraib guard Lindy England giving a thumbs up to your penis onto a photo of you. That's the whole bit. It's like 45 seconds long. It's done like an infomercial, and it ends with the line, "Call now and you'll receive this sturdy acrylic ass pyramid napkin holder." So do you have any specific critiques of this opening comedy sketch?
I mean, I guess I was a little conflicted because it's obviously very bad and unfunny. But on the other hand, I do think so. The sketch used real images from Abu Ghraib.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important for people to see those images. And I feel like there was so much focus on Guantanamo. Sorry, is this boring?
This is pre-Guantanamo being a topic of conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
Did Abu Ghraib precede Guantanamo?
Yeah, I think Guantanamo... So this is pre-torture memo getting leaked. So the torture memo had been leaked at this point, but it was in 2006 in which it's like the Military Powers Act or Military Tribunal Act or something like that was passed, which authorized indefinite detention, which I think was the start of... I don't know. Look, it's all very difficult to find out exactly when these stories were breaking a big deal, but that is to say, like, quote unquote, enhanced interrogation was not a huge story yet. The memos that John Woo wrote leaked in June of 2004. I don't think they've come up once on this show. So people don't know that we're doing enhanced interrogation at places like Guantanamo. Yeah.
But there's like, in the sketch, there's pictures of men naked, turned over.
That's all Abu Ghraib.
Yeah, but people didn't think that was torture?
No, they thought that was torture, but they thought it was an isolated incident, and the government claimed it was the work of some rogue.
I see.
Yes, even though the woman who let it all happen did say, she was like, we were essentially told to do this.
Yeah.
But no, the widespread exposure of this would not come. I think it was like right before the 2006 election, because that was a part of the Democrats riding a
You
huge
mean
wave.
04?
No, it was 2006 when the Democrats took back Congress.
Oh, okay.
And a part of how they did it was, I believe, the torture memo.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I of course did not find it funny, but when I was watching it, I was a little bit like, well, it's good that people are seeing this, like seeing what the U.S. government has done.
I thought it was maybe a little flippant about the subject.
Yeah, I guess that is probably
But I mean,
true.
But that's what's fucked up. It's like what you were saying is, I guess these images specifically were everywhere, but there are people whose like exposure to some of these issues were only through the incredibly like misguided, flippant lens of Real Time with Bill Maher. So they knew about it, but they also had an idea of like, yeah, but you like joke about this stuff.
I don't know that. Maybe I have faith in humanity, but I think Bill Maher is such a cretin, and that he might be. I don't see how you see those images and are flippant towards them unless you're Bill Maher.
Right. Okay. Well, I also very brief notes here. The last thing I wrote was in all caps, rock bottom. I do believe this was essentially rock bottom for the comedy on this show. It's like,
Yeah, I agree.
so lazy. Then we go to the monologue. Monologue immediately starts. They're cheering like crazy. And he goes, sit down, no one's getting a car, which immediately places where the moment in time that this episode happened.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Sure. It was like a current reference. And it made it clear that, oh, this happened right after Oprah gave her whole audience the cars. I'm going to go through joke by joke, but I've just summarized them. But any general thoughts on the monologue?
I thought the joke about Mary-Kate Olsen's eating disorder was in poor taste, but I also had to remember that this was 2004, and that was just a very common type of joke
Yeah.
people would make fun of celebrities' bodies and eating disorders a lot. And so I can't fault him necessarily alone for that.
And I'll say I had a sense of relief. When we get to that one, I'll explain why I had a sense of relief.
Because you hate her.
Eat less, I say. So
Say less.
we get to first joke. It's about Hurricane Ivan's winds are so strong that they blew Toby Keith's head clean out of his ass.
Yeah, I was kind of like, look, I have 53 more minutes of this episode to watch. I'm not going to give that one much thought.
And then he goes,
Oh, I kid, Toby.
and this is a recurring thing. Every week he is kidding people in the monologue. So he'll be like, the LAPD did police brutality. Oh, I kid the LAPD.
That's a good impression.
That's a real one he did, too.
Oh, I kid the LAPD.
I have the mannerisms. I don't have the voice. So second one, Bush has had it with these hurricanes, and he said we're going to attack them overseas so we won't have to fight them here.
Okay, it doesn't really make sense.
That's what he said about terrorism. That was a part of the excuse to
No,
invade
I
Iraq.
get it, but it just doesn't really work as a joke.
Andrea, it's topical.
Okay, it works. I've done a 180.
Next one.
I guess I'm maybe too logical because in my head I'm thinking, well, that's not how you fight hurricanes.
I know. I run into this. It's like, am I being like pedantic, or is it acceptable to be like, I need like a little bit of logic in a joke?
I appreciate that because it just doesn't. The mental gymnastics you need to do to find that funny is exhausting.
Yeah. Like I struggle with kind of obscure jokes because when I was a kid, a car ran over the left side of my brain.
Okay,
So I can't be creative.
that's why you have kind of this pompadour hair.
Yeah, it's to cover it up. I think I'm overcompensating. Number 3, the hurricane got so bad that the Alabama National Guard called the president, who out of habit said, "Tell them I'm not here."
That one's kind of funny.
And then he goes,
Oh, I kid the president. He knows I'm just joshing.
Oh, thank God.
but after he does that one, he looks on his face like, obviously I mean it and I'm not kidding. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes sometimes he uses it correctly. They're like, I kid, like in a sarcastic way. And other times it's like, well, you sincerely are kidding. So like, how am I to know which one it is at any given moment?
We're dealing with a very sick individual.
Kitty Kelly's new book revealed, Kitty Kelly, she wrote a very famous unauthorized biography of the Bush family. Her new book revealed that Barbara Bush contemplated suicide multiple times, but every time she tried to slit her wrists, George was using the razor blades to cut his coke. Now, this does not get much of a laugh, this joke, and I think it's he's a really bad comedian, and I don't think because he's fucked up, he doesn't consider that, like, even if the joke is good, if you put the image of an elderly woman slitting her wrists in someone's mind, they're gonna get hung up on that. Sorry, I spoke for you. Did you love this joke?
I thought it was a good joke.
Oh my God.
Because it's...
Your generation is so fucked up.
I guess the thing that I'm realizing right now is the things that Bill Maher jokes about, like some of them I feel like he would never, like I feel like this caliber of like quote unquote comedian does not make fun of the Bush family anymore, and so in a way it's refreshing because people have rehabilitated Bush, Reagan, you know, what's the guy who I see on Twitter that everyone follows, David Frum.
Okay. There's literally a segment, it didn't come up this week, but some weeks I give out an award called the Worm of the Week to the panelist I think is being an unbelievable worm and pathetic. And that is because I had a nervous breakdown watching David Frum on the show this 1 week. And I was like, I have to honor him.
Yeah.
David Frum, Bill Kristol is another guy. Although Bill Kristol has emerged as a big advocate for the rights of trans people.
Fascinating.
Dude, crazy. He wrote an op-ed in the Bulwark about how trans people are being dehumanized and attacked, and they deserve the same dignity that all people deserve. He was posting today about how he had dinner with Sarah McBride and what a great, reasonable person he thought she was, and how, like, it's disgusting the way she's being attacked.
What is does he have a kid Who's trans?
I think it might be. If I had to guess, I would say a grandchild who is exploring their gender identity right now.
Well,
But
that
pure
maybe
speculation.
gives your listeners some hope not to kill themselves.
I hope. Like, it's truly, it can come from the most unexpected people.
Yeah.
But yes.
Well, did you see Ann Coulter say that they shouldn't deport Mahmoud? Is it Khalil?
Yeah, the
The
Colombia,
Palestinian activist?
who went to Colombia. Yeah, I did not see that.
She was like, there's no one. She's like, look, there's no one I don't want to deport, but this is a First Amendment issue. And she's quote tweeting the ADL. So Ann Coulter has come out on the left of the ADL.
That's like, there was like an episode of like Fox Business News one time where Ben Stein was on, and he was like, it's a disgrace that there are people with no health care in this country, and there is a waiting line to purchase a Bentley. And it's just like, what is with these right-wing lunatics who suddenly have like their one thing where they're like, hold on. It's like Gorsuch. People make fun of Gorsuch because he's so into like indigenous rights.
He is?
Yes, it was a joke for a long time that every single case he'd be like, I believe the defendant should be executed on the spot right now, until it was about like indigenous rights, to where he'd be like, I'd like to open my remarks with a land acknowledgement. Like, he was so into indigenous rights.
Maybe he really just likes turquoise.
I think he just hates the government that much is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Just likes turquoise. Come on.
What? What? I'm racist.
The littlest racist.
I remember after the 2024 election, and people were talking about how Native Americans voted for Trump, like that demographic went for him. But then it was because they just don't vote, because why would they? Yeah. So the ones who do vote are insane.
Yeah. So that was the next joke. Still talking about the book. The book also says Laura Bush sold dime bags in college. And in reaction to this, Redbook called her asking why her brownie recipe only serves 2. So I
Great
don't.
joke.
This to me is the joke where I'm like, what do you mean? Why would it? So it's a joke. Oh, her recipe for brownies, pot brownies. Why would they only serve 2?
No, the joke you're emitting.
Is it because they're so
words.
high?
No, it was like her recipe for brownies makes 24 but only serves 2 or something like that.
Okay.
Like there's verbiage
Okay,
that
so
you're
it's
missing.
because people were high.
Yes, because they eat so many. So it was like, why is the recipe calling for...
That makes sense, and
You need to go back and watch
I can
the
be
episode.
honest about my mistakes, unlike this guy. I'll eat that one. I can be honest about these things. Next joke. Bush seems weirdly upbeat about Iraq, despite intelligence services saying the war is going worse and worse. Kerry accused him of having a secret plan to send more troops after the election, to which Bush said, "Don't be ridiculous. Me have a plan?" That's not a joke. I contend that's not a real joke. You haven't written a real punchline with that joke. To just go, me have a plan?
I think that's a punchline. I just don't think it's funny.
I don't think it is strong enough in any comedic direction. I think it very easily still works as just a part of the setup.
I think it works.
Well, it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work because people don't laugh.
They didn't laugh.
No, it doesn't do well.
Huh.
Even if the thought is that it still counts as a joke, it's not a joke that worked, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's so long. And when they
Becoming
clap.
a Bill Maher apologist in real time.
So
Bill
there
Maher.
have been 3 people who didn't hate him. One was my friend Lindsay, who doesn't hate anybody. One was Steve Hernandez, who was like, I love this
Oh,
shit.
that's so funny. Of course,
He
Steve.
came on, he was like, I love this guy. I love Jordan Peterson. I
So-
love Joe
he
Rogan.
watches Joe Rogan.
He's like,
yeah.
I love all that. I love these
But you know what,
blowhards.
Steve? You know, huge Bernie guy, very progressive.
Well, it's like he loves a dumb guy who is like, he loves an ape man.
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah.
Like, you know, and he did also say, he's like, you know, but then it was like, once Roe v. Wade got overturned, I was like, I can't enjoy Jordan Peterson on the same, like, it's just too hard now to like laugh at this stuff.
Yeah, poor Steve.
And my friend Adam, who It's just like, I don't care. Also, Adam saw the best episode of this show ever. The guests were Michael Moore, Aaron Magruder, who created the Boondocks, and Charles Barkley.
Oh my God.
It was so fun, that panel. Bill Maher opens by going, so you're all a very outspoken, independent gay men, and the crowd laughs, and Charles Barkley goes, hey guys, I don't care. I love you anyway.
That's so funny. Oh, Chuck. Get Bill Maher on Inside the NBA.
Hey, the way he gets exercise is he shoots hoops and jumps on his trampoline.
I believe that. That sounds fun.
One racial stereotype that is absolutely true is that every Jewish guy from the New York, New Jersey area that's this age has been playing basketball their entire life.
True.
Like, I think I knew that because I listened to the Beastie Boys my whole life, but I think everybody realized that when they watched Bernie in 2020, like, just like shooting threes. And
in Uncut Gems, where I don't remember if it's Kevin Garnett says to Adam Sandler, what is it with Jewish N-words and basketball?
It was probably Kevin Garnett. The greatest one acting performance. The only thing he's ever acted in. He's incredible in it.
Bill Maher?
Yeah, Bill Maher was in Uncut Gems.
He played the wife.
He would never play someone who was married. Next joke.
What is that, a joke from the monologue?
No,
I got your ass.
Fuck. I guess I have to change the name to I Hate Will Weldon now.
No.
So 3 severed heads were found outside Baghdad last Wednesday. Hey, memo to the Iraqi people. Severed head pickup is Tuesday.
I thought they should have cut that one.
So here's the thing. For this one, I was like, in the abstract, I'm like, I think that joke's kind of funny, but I can't laugh at it.
It's so sad.
It's so sad.
So visceral, too.
It's horrific.
It's really sad.
And then he goes,
If you want to sleep right, roll them out on Monday night. And then
That was funny. I like that button. Because I was like, I do that.
You like relatable humor.
I love it.
So next joke.
Love it.
California health inspectors fined 2 porn companies for letting their actors have unprotected sex. They also gave one of the girls a C rating. Who's going to eat there now?
That one was confusing to me because when have you ever watched pornography where there are condoms involved?
So that's because of gonzo porn.
Oh.
That just like pick up and shoot stuff essentially destroyed because if you look at older porn.
They all have condoms?
They all have condoms on. Because it was like a safety. And a part of the reason is that law was passed in the 90s because of AIDS.
Right.
Almost specifically. And I think it was once HIV was essentially like testing has been ratcheted up, like testing requirements and stuff. I think that was the compromise. It was like, okay, you don't have to use condoms, but you have to be very rigorous in your testing. Also, most porn is just like, they just shoot it in like a van or whatever. Like, it's hard to regulate a lot of the people making it now.
They do not shoot most porn in a van.
A van, a room, you just pick up a camera and go. Yeah, van. There's a lot of van porn.
Yeah, but it's the minority of porn.
I think it's more than you'd think. I'd know.
You're going to Van Hub or something.
Yeah, but that's just to jack off at vans.
All right, let's keep it moving.
please, people. Just jokes.
That's what he says after that one.
That's kind of funny.
Why is that kind of funny?
Because I like defending Bill Maher to watch your response.
So the next one
I
is...
also feel like I need to go because I imagine the people who go on this podcast really don't like him. So I'm trying to...
Oh, you're trying to be the villain of the show?
Yeah, I want to be the villain.
I mean, it might be a good way to get, I don't know, asked back.
I think so. I guess I want to bring something to the podcast that other people have not historically brought.
So you might be the youngest person to ever be on the show.
Is that true?
I think so.
How old do you think I am?
You're like 30.
31.
You're still the youngest person I've ever had on the show.
And you know what? I'm older now than I was when we started this podcast.
Never make fun of a joke I make ever again. So next joke, it opens with, he goes...
And did you see this? The Olsen twins.
And I paused it, and I went, no, I don't want to know. I was sure it was going to be a joke about fucking the Olsen twins. But maybe they were, and this is a horrifying thing to say, but it's reflective of the culture, not me. Maybe at this point they were too old to be making those jokes. I'm not sure how old they were. Because are you aware of like the whole like Olsen twin pedophilia entertainment industrial complex that exists?
No.
People were constantly making jokes about like, can't wait till they're 18.
Oh.
Somebody like made a website with a timer that was ticking down until they were
Wasn't that
18.
for a lot of people?
Yeah, it was like a funny thing to be like, I can't wait until I can't go to jail for this.
Jail is hard.
I mean, I wouldn't. My issue is not with them not wanting to go to jail.
Well, as an abolitionist, maybe it should be.
So he says that, but then the rest of the joke is, as you said, he goes, they signed a deal to promote McDonald's Happy Meals. Mary Kate said she loves eating at McDonald's because afterwards she doesn't have to work so hard at throwing up. I admit I was relieved that the joke was not about having sex with an 18-year-old. But you are correct also that the joke is perhaps a touch insensitive. And cruel for no reason. And it's also like, finally, the Olsen twins are getting taken down. Like, they've never... When he goes after Ted Kennedy for killing a woman, that's funny. Because Ted Kennedy killed a woman and got away with it.
They never did anything wrong.
Never. The worst thing you could accuse him of having done is, like, I don't know what, they promoted cigarette smoking? Like...
I think there's a hatred of celebrities, especially at this time. Like,
yeah.
Like, why is someone famous who's not smart? Like as if celebrities need to be this meritocracy where the most, higher education you've received, that should correlate with how famous you are.
And it actually, when Britney Spears had her nervous breakdown, I remember Craig Ferguson opened his monologue that night by being like, I'm not going to make fun of these people anymore.
That's sweet.
This is like really upsetting
really
to watch.
sad.
And he was like, and I've had a nervous break. Like, I've been in that place.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine if everybody was waiting around to make fun of me for it. But that, I think, was still like 2 or 3 years away. Mm-hmm. So we've still got 2 or 3 years of good jokes, man.
Oh, thank God.
Star Jones, she's fat. Laugh it up.
And that's just a joke you wrote.
Every late night host was doing Star Jones's fat jokes. It was crazy how long that went on for. I worked with a guy who did late night who told me another late night host one time called and was like, you can't even make fun of fat people in the monologue anymore.
I do think you should be able to make fun of Trump for being fat.
But it's not for being fat. It's for, I think it's the way he tries to deny that he is fat in the ways he stands.
Yes, I think you're right.
I will give him this. I do think he must have the most powerful calves in America because he is always leaning forward. And that requires insane leg strength to do.
It requires leg strength to go backwards because you have to be on your heels. Like when you do squats and deadlifts, you're supposed to put your weight on your heels.
Yeah.
Sorry, this isn't interesting. Let's
okay.
keep it moving.
I mean, I do like to talk about that stuff. I'm getting back into it.
Oh yeah, you look huge. What are you, Star Jones?
I'm not trying to. The last joke. Although I have to get surgery for a hernia that I've had for, no lie, 22 years. It's time to finally get something done about it. And that's going to throw me off of my workout schedule, which is going to make me crazy. But I got to do it. Last joke. This joke is to me so strange.
Why are you yelling at me?
The Kobe joke. Because I'm wound up.
Oh, yeah. Let's fucking go. I need to get on your level.
You can stay on whatever level you want, but don't drag me down to yours.
Powerful.
This joke about Kobe Bryant, he makes like 3 little jokes within it.
And finally, a new tape has come out which details some of Kobe Bryant's interview with the police in Colorado. The new revelation is about Kobe's regular mistress. Apparently he had a regular mistress. I guess somebody's in line for a new match set of earrings. But what Kobe was telling the cops is apparently the mistress could verify his alibi, which was basically face down, ass up. That's how I like it. Kobe said he preferred that position so he could watch the game. And when the cops questioned that, he said, haven't you followed my career? I'm known for coming from behind.
Someone who does not understand basketball.
This joke is 42 seconds long. It's so long, this joke. And then that Yeah, and then the punchline is just like, what do you mean he comes from behind? Who's playing defense
That's how
like
basketball works.
Well, but it's also like your defender is facing you. Your primary defender's facing you. They're not, or maybe they have you like, if you're at the basket, they've got their back to you because they're boxing. But like, what is that play in basketball? I come from behind. Is he out of bounds and like sneaks in?
To me, I like the visual is that he never got back on defense and just stayed by the hoop the whole time.
So I think at this point, actually, Kobe was playing pretty good defense because he still had his knees. He still moved laterally, but like,
And he was still alive.
good point. And all in the service of that punchline. Like all that work in service of, haven't you seen me play? You know I always come from behind.
Like, I get
Also, saying I come from behind kind of implies that he comes out of his ass.
coming from the front would just mean that he wants her to watch him come. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know what you're saying because none of this makes any sense.
I don't really know what I'm saying either.
But that's what they ended on. And then we go to the interview with journalist Kitty Kelly.
I liked her.
She was a pretty good interview. It was just about her.
It was funny.
It was her book about the Bushes. Do you have any thoughts about this interview? I try not to dwell too long on the interviews at this point.
So in a lot of these interviews, there's like a fake background of Washington, D.C. And Bill Maher goes, oh, I see the Capitol behind you. Are you in D.C.? And she goes, I'm in a bunker. I thought that was funny because she delivered it very deadpan. She's like an old lady.
I think because it starts off, Bill Maher starts off by saying like, the press corps is really going after you for this book.
Right.
So I think she has probably learned to be good at like deflecting stuff. I have some quotes here, a few quotes from here. Because they're talking about how it's like, oh, Laura Bush sold weed. He's like, I can't believe Laura Bush, this librarian, proper woman,
Yeah, that's crazy.
sold dime bags
No, I
in
mean,
college.
it's crazy that he was indignant about it or incredulous.
He sold drugs after he graduated from Cornell.
No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that her image doesn't line up with this drug dealer persona.
I think he's shocked that she sold weed. Like, because it's
No,
not
I
like,
agree.
Like dime bags of weed. Like,
Not that much.
it's almost nothing. It's not like, and then after he says that, Kitty Kelly goes, well, the disconnect between the public image and what's on the page is what's so hard to believe. And Bill Maher goes,
Honey, I'm on that page with you.
And that was kind of a moment of solidarity. Can I put the mic down so I can turn up the heat?
yes,
You're going to have to edit this out.
I know. Also, Bill Maher says George Bush does not seem like the type to have ever done coke.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
I think it makes sense that Bill Maher is saying things like this when you realize that he probably has never had friends.
So he is genuinely seems to be friends with at least Larry Miller and Jerry Seinfeld. But I also don't know that Jerry Seinfeld has a normal human relationship in his entire life.
Yeah.
Like, he just doesn't seem like he can do that.
What about with his wife? Like when they go to UCLA protests together? That's date night to call the cops on anti-genocide.
When he takes her
protesters.
to the McDonald's playpen so she can have a nice time.
We're talking about his ex.
His current wife is also much younger than him.
Really?
Yeah, guys only do that once. Bill Maher makes it. Oh, it's when she says that Katie Kelly is like, these things that they don't let us know. Like, why cover up that Bush Sr. had mistresses? And Bill Maher goes,
If they look anything like his wife, I'd like to cover them up.
I doubt that's what?
is Barbara Bush like?
Oh, you're thinking of Laura Bush. Barbara Bush is the mother.
No, I know. I think he's talking about Bush Sr.
Oh.
Because Bush Sr. had the mistresses. He was the famous
Was
pussy
Barbara
freak.
Bush hot? That's not common knowledge.
She wasn't hot, but I don't think she was like I. He also goes
I'm kidding. Please stop. It's a light remark. It's
after he says that. So he's like,
Oh, he's just kidding.
He's
Oh,
kidding
thank
like
God.
crazy this
Oh,
episode.
he's being funny.
being cheeky. Is that Ricky Gervais up there hosting? Because I see a
Who do
cheeky
you
little
think
monkey.
is funnier, Gervais or Maher?
Gervais.
Because he has that funny little fake accent.
I mean, he's made some of the funniest stuff ever. He just stinks now.
Whereas Bill Maher's funniest stuff is yet to come. It's like on its way. It's in development.
Every time I see him, I'm like, he just keeps getting better and better. Mm-hmm. So, and then he ends the interview by making a weird joke where she's like, yeah, George Bush found Christ because he saw somebody dragging a 12-foot cross across Midland, Texas. And Bill Maher goes, are you sure it wasn't that black guy they dragged behind the back of a truck?
And what was that a reference to?
I didn't want to look it up because I didn't want to know. So it's definitely a reference to the murder of James Byrd Jr., who was lynched by 3 men in Jasper, Texas. So I'm not sure why this particular reference was on his mind.
There seems to be a common thing in this show where the jokes are based on like a very visceral image that's upsetting. Mm-hmm. And I just have to believe there's got to be a different way to do comedy.
Yeah, the crowd doesn't laugh at that either.
It's like, it's shock value, but it's not shock value the way we think of it.
It's shock value without the value.
Yeah.
It's just
Right,
shock.
right.
Like, it's not like he has a good point. He's making some incredible point here.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like if George Bush...
Also, why would he become Christian from seeing a black guy dragged from it? Like, again, there's a disconnect.
Yeah, like, if George Bush had done it, and the joke was supposed to be like, oh, he found Christ to get out of...
But why would he find Christ from doing a hate crime?
Well, like, to get out of... And again, I'm like reaching here to make sense of a thing that is not the case.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and that should have been included in the quote unquote joke.
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, and it is possible that some story had come out about Midland, Texas at that point. But then we go to the panel. The panel is Dr. Cornel West, PJ O'Rourke, who...
One of the least funny people I've ever met, who wants so badly to... I've ever met. Everyone I watched on the show, I think that I've met them.
I am not proud to admit this. I used to listen to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me all the time.
Why are you not proud to admit that?
Because it's so corny. And he was a guest on the show all the time. I don't think I ever heard him get a laugh. Huh. He's the least...
And yet he keeps trying. Isn't that kind of... There's a lesson there.
I know people who say his writing either is or was... I mean, it's not is. He's dead.
He's dead?
Yeah, PJ O'Rourke is fucking dead.
What?
Yeah. Good riddance.
But I just met him. How did he die? Was he not young? Was it not a young death?
He killed too hard at a...
Shut up.
He got such a big laugh.
Look it up. How'd he die?
I don't know. Of being old.
He didn't seem that old.
And then the third guest is... and I will give Bill Maher credit.
Oh, this is actually sad. I just looked it up. Uh-huh. He died of a self-suck accident.
So, hey, I say that's the way to go. Bill Maher is...
Oh, he was diagnosed with treatable rectal cancer.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's what he announced. Then he died of lung cancer at the age of 74.
Well, the doctors messed that diagnosis up.
How does it travel straight from... So he didn't... Okay.
I don't know. He is very reverential towards Cornel West, which is...
No, he's not. He's reverential... Oh, you're saying PJ is.
No, Bill Maher during his intro is like...
Oh,
one of the smartest, like, so great. And I'll say that... Especially because he really views himself as an outsider at this point. He loves Al Sharpton. He loves Jesse. Like, he loves these guys who are sort of outsider figures, even within what should theoretically be their own political parties.
Yeah, crazy.
He appreciates that. He's too reverential towards P.J. O'Rourke. And then, yeah, like you said, Julie Delphi, who he's like from Before Sunset, the sequel after Sunset? And she's like, yes. He's like, okay, I didn't. Anyway, I've wanted to have you on for so long. Julie Delphi, everybody. And it's this weird.
It's very weird.
Weird dead space where it's like, if he's like, I never know. It's like, well, put it on the card then. Like, what are you doing here? I think he wanted to have her on because I think he wanted to try to have sex with her. would be my guess.
Yeah. I also think he gets off on being condescending to younger women.
Oh my God.
Like
This makes so much sense.
You know what? I just think that is her purpose on the panel.
Is to be kind of condescended to?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one moment where he essentially accuses her of not being able to speak English.
Oh, that was so funny.
It's very clear what she's saying.
So
her English is
articulate and good at English, and he goes, I can't understand a word she's saying.
It's fucking insane. So their first topic was, this was right when Dan Rather reported on the forged document saying Bush never showed up to the Alabama National Guard. He got tricked by somebody.
Was this when
and that was what forced Dan Rather out.
When he was in the armed services?
Nobody knew
where he was,
what he missed, what he showed up for, what his role with the Alabama National Guard was.
Oh, because he was supposed to be. He said that he worked with them.
Yeah, he was supposed to report for duty, but he also took time off to work for his dad's campaign, and then I believe the documents said he just went AWOL. Those documents were faked to hurt this story because they were trying to do whatever they could to discredit John Kerry's service.
So the documents saying that he went AWOL were
forged.
Fake,
yeah.
Were forged.
And Dan Rather reported on them, and then that led to the end of Dan Rather's career.
Almost like the beheaded babies story.
A lot of people have lost their careers over that, reporting on that. So then my first note here is about P.J. O'Rourke's unbearable nervous laughter.
Oh boy, look at this. Documents come from a computer back in 72. Who even knew? And just bid it.
Really bad.
They talk about how bad John Kerry's campaign is. Do you have any so I'll say any general thoughts on the talk of this? They get into the assault weapons ban. Anything on those anything that's stuck in your mind from those two topics?
On the assault weapons ban and
the prior
Kerry campaign?
Yeah, about Bush's service and the Kerry campaign. They don't stay on that for very long.
Well, I think the criticism of the Kerry campaign in the episode, which is that he's a Republican, but better. Or he's a Republican, but he's liked abroad. It's a very legitimate criticism that is applied now by leftists to the current Democratic Party, and you would never see Bill Maher criticizing.
They're too far left now for Bill Maher.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because it was. I agreed with it. Things that I agree with, I go, that's interesting.
He loves principles at this point in time. So he said multiple times, he's been like, John Kerry should look to the John Kerry of 1972. That's the John Kerry.
Yeah, and then he gets an applause.
We should be getting. And this is also, this whole panel is not, it's not super compelling.
Wait.
Leaf blower?
Leaf blowers.
The panel, they all generally get along. Like, there's no contention or anything. And even
they went out for drinks after. They had so much fun.
Even P.J. O'Rourke, he'll be like, I'm a Republican. I think this strategy is terrible. So everyone is engaging in good faith, which isn't...
Julie Delphi is kind of out to lunch at that point.
Well, as I said, she's a bit,
Or early on. She gets engaged later.
Have you ever seen Marianne Cotard in an interview?
You can't say that.
You're
not allowed to say that.
She is like a full 9/11 truther. There's some pretty like.
Who is that?
Marianne Cotard. She's a really great actress. She played Talia al Ghul in the third Christopher Nolan Batman movie. It's like her biggest role. She's great.
Christopher Nolan's house had a Nathan Hawkman for a DA sign on his lawn.
Yeah, of course.
Why? What do you mean, of course?
Because guys like that just want... I had to stop watching Severance because Patricia Arquette got really involved with the Recall Gascon movement.
Oh, I forgot about that.
After she had campaigned so hard for him earlier, being like, we need to get all these innocent black people out of jail. Yeah, in 2020. And then 2 years later, she was like, put them back in. I'm tired of CVS having to lock up their razors.
Because she wants to cut up Laura Bush's coat.
She's disgusting. I hate her. They get into the assault weapon stuff. Bill Maher says to P.J. O'Rourke, you have a lot of guns, right? And P.J. O'Rourke goes, hey, yeah, I do. Better to have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. He goes, and you never know. Might have to end up shooting Democrats like at Fort Sumter. And the crowd goes, and Bill Maher goes,
He's kidding, ladies and gentlemen. Lighten up.
to the crowd.
He hates the crowd, and he loves PJ.
Hates the crowd. Yeah, his crowd are pigs, and his guests are angels. He's had on the most disingenuous people, and they'll say the biggest crocks of shit. The crowd will start going like, no, boo. And Bill Maher will go, hey, stop. He's a serious guy with some serious thoughts. And it's like, no, he's not. He's just your buddy on your show.
Are the people who go to the shows and are in the audience fans of Bill Maher, or people who get paid to go, or
I would say they were fans at this
tourists?
point. He had so much cred after Politically Incorrect got canceled that like he was like a big deal.
Yeah.
Like he had his big cultural moment. This was one of them. Now the crowd is clearly way smaller. And because the show was one of the only live television shows for a really long time, protesters used to go and protest it because they'd get on TV. And so you couldn't just sign up for tickets. You had to like go through a vetting process to get them. And that's why his crowd now just does whatever he wants. I forget, because you live in such a like beautiful neighborhood on a beautiful street, I forgot that also means there's just going to be tons of noise because nature loves, like there's just going to be like lots of birds singing.
Yes.
And
Well, I guess I've gotten really spoiled because I just associate it with leaf blowers now.
Right. Wait, why is that spoiled?
Because it's like I live in this beautiful neighborhood and I go, oh, the leaf blowers,
right,
it's terrible. Instead of like, oh, I live in a beautiful neighborhood with tree canopy.
Right. Every morning, Jess gets up and throws a handful of birdseed in the backyard and then just sits in a lawn chair and watches the sparrows.
I'm sure there's nothing nefarious going on.
It's very soothing, but it is a little sinister.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she's like, I'm in control.
Well, she wants bird friend. Like, she was for a while feeding the crows in the hopes that they would start bringing her gifts, because crows will do that. They'll
I would maybe take her to see someone.
She's seeing someone already. She's been seeing someone before she was seeing me.
Oh, you guys have an open thing?
No, a therapist, I thought you meant.
She's seeing the therapist?
Oh, I'll clean this all up in post, don't worry.
Okay, great.
So, there's also, so he talks so glowingly about Cornel West. And then Cornel West, they're talking about sort of patriarchy comes up a little bit. And
Bill Maher doesn't seem to know what that word means.
Because Cornel West says, he goes,
women can be actually imitative of the patriarchal model and still be women. They just need critique like the men.
And this is in context to women owning guns.
Yeah.
Because PJ O'Rourke says that his wife has a gun and is a great shot.
a better shot than him.
A better shot than him. And then Cornel West goes, well, actually, women can participate in this as well.
Yes. Which is like not, it's like,
not an original.
Yeah.
No disrespect to.
And Bill Maher goes,
what the
sorry.
fuck are you saying?
Say what?
Don't tell my wife because she's a good shot.
She's a good shot.
That's the problem when you have a professor on the show. You're not really sure what they're talking about.
So crazy. So crazy.
And maybe you can chalk that a little bit up to like the idea of like patriarchal models, like that kind of language wasn't in the mainstream. But the flip side is like, this is your guest who you claim to love, and you're hosting this like supposedly smart political talk show, and you're like, patriarchy? I wonder,
do you think he's going for the joke? Like he's trying to ingratiate himself?
No, he's 100% sincere, wow. I would wager. Because he looks genuinely like, he looks the same as when he doesn't understand what Julie Delphi is saying later. Uh-huh. So then they segue into the antidepressant clinical depression. 11 million kids are on antidepressants. What'd you think about the vibes of this conversation?
They just felt so old and so out of touch. And like, I think that was like a rare L from Cornel West, where Cornel West is like, it's the pharmaceutical industry. And it's like, maybe, but also what are the causes of depression? Like poverty, maybe.
And he mentions that, well, I guess it's Julie Delphi who actually says that in the context of saying something much more insane. But you're right. Like, I remember thinking this way, too, at this point in time, though, being like, oh, just like medicating the creativity out of kids. And, you know, antidepressant, they turn you into a zombie. You just walk around like a zombie. And even at the start, Bill Maher is like, you know, 11 million kids on Prozac and 3% of them commit suicide. So maybe we should look into that. And it's like, maybe it's not the Prozac making kids kill themselves. Maybe the fact that the kids are thinking about killing themselves or why they go on the Prozac in the first place. And like, unfortunately, the medical intervention is not successful, as opposed to being like, they're just sticking normal kids on Prozac and then they're going around killing themselves.
I like when Julie Delphi was like, being depressed is part of being a kid.
Yeah, it's people who don't understand the difference between being sad and depression.
Yeah.
Like this idea of like I'm on antidepressants and I was at my most sort of numb when I wasn't. Like I remember points in my life where I was walking around, I felt like I was just like a black sucking void of just like I didn't want to do anything, nothing had any purpose.
Yeah, that's how I felt watching this episode.
Sure, this is not good for me. This podcast has not been a good thing.
No, but it's a cash cow.
Ching ching, baby.
Goose.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, I need you to know when I picture you, I just picture a big bag with a dollar sign on
with
it.
Huge tits.
Yeah, with big tits. And the tiniest little ass. It's a very strange look, especially on a bag of money. That's a weird to begin with.
Interesting. Top heavy.
So this is when Julie Delphi, this is what you texted me. The one thing you texted me about specifically, this is when Julie Delphi is like, we're on all these drugs. The rates of autism are skyrocketing, and nobody stopped to think maybe these two things have something to do with each other.
Yeah, that was... Was everyone just anti-autism at that time?
Yeah, some people treated it like a death sentence. Like some people literally think where they're like, a lot of people made the point where it's like, even if vaccines caused autism, which they don't, it still would be better to have more people with autism who weren't dying of measles than all of us still at the risks of all, like, you know, fucking me. All these things we're inoculated against now. We're better off if we just had more people with autism than if we were being devastated by these diseases we've had previously eradicated. And two, about saying nobody's asking the question, do these things have anything to do with each other? It's like, well, they clearly are, because that's where you got this idea. Like, Julie Delphi did not come up with this notion on her own.
Yeah.
This was an incredibly popular... Bill Maher earlier told Ralph Nader that vaccines will kill you.
Oh, my God.
It just was like... Yeah, and Bill Maher says he's like...
Also, incredible that he had Ralph Nader on.
Oh, he loves Nader, too. Nader's another guy. He loves Nader.
Still?
I don't know about still. He did have Nader on, and he and Michael Moore got down on their hands and knees and begged him not to run for president in 2004. Nader didn't matter. John, like, run a good candidate. They talk about antidepressants. Yeah, just, it's frustrating. None of these people have clinical depression, have experience with it. I mean, maybe they have it. But the way they talk about it, it's so completely uninformed on the subject.
Yeah, I just remember being really aware of how no one on the panel had any medical expertise.
Also, the other thing about the expanding rates of autism, I was talking to Jess about this, and she was like, well, the thing with the like rates of autism going up corresponds with the rates of diagnosed like mental disabilities going down. So it is simply just getting more specific about these kinds of things.
Well, also people weren't getting diagnosed they weren't seeking a diagnosis.
Yes. And even if, you know, you brought your kid in and it was like, what's wrong with them? They put them in a home in the 40s. Like, it's not like we had, like, we just...
That's a sitcom.
What, Autism House?
Well, so each week one person doesn't have autism and you have to guess.
Oh, so it's like a reality
And
show,
they're
not a
all
sitcom.
hooking up.
Hold on. This is a bit of a hat on a hat situation, what we've got going on
And
here.
it's in Abu Ghraib.
So then they move on to Viagra. They start talking about
Wait,
Viagra.
Bill Maher has a really funny joke about that. I think this was the best joke, which isn't saying much of the episode, where he goes, have you seen these Viagra commercials? I've had it up to here. And then he points at,
as if
funny.
he had... Yeah, he points to his abdomen as if he has an enormous erection. Really? You got a big kick out of that one?
I loved it. I
Jesus.
clapped like a seal.
Well, then he talks about Viagra commercials. He's like, have you seen these commercials?
Remember that guy who wanted to spend the whole honeymoon inside? And it's these middle-aged couple, and they're having eye contact, and he's touching her hair. Okay, if they're doing that after 20 years of marriage, Daddy doesn't need a boner pill. You know, the only capsule that can make you do that is a time capsule.
That one made me really sad because, you know, obviously this is someone who's deeply unhappy, doesn't have friends, has addiction issues, but also this is someone who's never been in love. Sometimes you get glimpses into that with him, and there is a modicum of compassion where I go, oh, that's why he's like this.
I think you really see it in current day,
Yeah.
where he's so miserable, and it's just like, you don't, and he's so afraid to die, and it's like, you haven't left anything behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody's gonna remember you, and
Well, you will.
I mean, I'll be a ghost being haunted by his ghost after I die. And also it's like, it also is a depressing glimpse into, he insists his upbringing was normal. And Kath Barbadaro floated the theory that the way he talks about unhappy couples seems like somebody who doesn't have experience with it. Like it's somebody just imagining the worst possible case scenario. But then shit like this makes it maybe not necessarily like an unhappy childhood, but like he had parents who today would just be like, we're going to separate. Like, we still love each other, but not romantically.
This is his parents sitting him down at age like 56.
Yes. Yeah. And he like the idea that like not even old, middle-aged, like he says a middle-aged couple would not have physical intimacy.
Do you consider yourself middle-aged?
I am categorically middle-aged.
Wow.
So
Can we get a mic for Bogey?
and then PG O'Rourke asks Julie Delphi, which made me a little uncomfortable. He's like, you're a woman. Let me ask you, do you want a bunch of ugly old fat guys running around ready to go at a moment's notice?
Oh my God.
And everybody laughs, and she's like, ha 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 ha, no comment. And it's just like, call the police.
Oh my God.
And then this is the part when there's still, I can't remember what, they're talking about Viagra. I can't remember what part of it. And Julie Delphi is like,
It's probably worse for you.
Why?
Well, isn't it like an antidepressant, like suicidal?
Why me?
Related? No, I mean, in general.
Oh, me in
Okay.
general? You mean men?
Okay, my English. Okay, sorry.
I don't know what you're saying to me. But
and she clearly is saying it must be more difficult for you, men. Like she clarifies she's referring to men.
Yeah.
Not Bill Maher specifically. And he
Right.
still is like, what is this French maniac talking about?
I felt bad for her on that panel because everything she said, minus the stuff about, vaccines and
Was wrong.
antidepressants.
Yeah. That was the one correct thing she said on the show.
Yeah.
He does genuinely embarrass and humiliate her in that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you would ever treat
No,
a guest like that.
there's another moment later where she's talking about how Bush is a bad president, and he goes, "Wow, you're really worked up." It's like you're the one who has a show dedicated to this.
I don't even remember that part. So then they segue to Oprah gave away 300 cars, and I want to
Pontiacs specifically because he jokes about that.
I want to read it. He goes,
am I just being the skunk at the garden party, or is there something sick and creepy about Oprah Winfrey giving away 300 cards?
He used the word creepy?
creepy.
Why is that creepy?
He kind of clarifies and is like, isn't it like fucking weird that all these people, they're like jumping around all excited, like they're so obsessed with like material goods. He has never talked like this before ever. He has never been like this obsession with materialism. Like, isn't it disgusting? Doesn't it weird you out? And I think it's because he's trying to endear himself to Julie Delphi because he even looks at her opponent. He goes, "You're European. They're not like this. Are they like this in Europe? They're not, right?" And first of all, it's like, what are you talking about? Are you unfamiliar with Euro trash? Like, Europeans aren't materialistic, are there? First of all, the English are in Europe, and they definitely are materialistic. But, like, they're all materialistic. It's like a worldwide phenomenon that people like to have things that make them feel good in the short term. People love treats. But he's trying to be like, I'm not like these other Americans who love their free cars. I'm like you, Julie Delphi. I'm a French free spirit who doesn't need anything. Guy's got like 4 homes. And he's like, I'm not into material goods. This all fucking creeps me out. And only Cornel West, it takes a few minutes before Cornel West is like, I mean, if you don't have a car and you get a free car, I mean, cry away. Because, like,
Yeah.
I've been poor. It sucks.
Yeah.
And that is the first time it has occurred to any of these people that, like, maybe there's a little financial... Even if you don't need the car, you can be like, I'm
Sell
gonna
it. You can give it to someone you know.
Like, it's an incredible gift to
Yeah,
receive.
It is.
And these people are like, these fucking freaks. These weird creeps. At one point, Bill Maher accuses them of faking it.
Whenever I see people in America receiving material goods for free, it really bothers me because they get excited. They get into this orgiastic state. I mean, it's like when Miss America wins. They're crying and they're jumping up and down and they're just shaking with people should not, if people are really that happy, they don't need drugs, they don't need guns, and they just don't get that excited about receiving material goods.
It's like, where is this coming from?
I think the Bill Maher, every time he makes a large purchase, it's so private and it's like embarrassing in his mind to show any genuine excitement about anything.
He just recently insisted to John Lovett that he was not out of touch. He was like, I don't do social media. I have so much money. I have chefs, assistants. I don't need social media, you know.
Yeah, his chefs are giving him the news.
And then he goes, but I'm not out of touch. I'm not out of touch. Because John Lovett goes, not out of touch, right? He's like, I'm not out of touch.
So funny.
And then he goes, I tell my chef, I won't yell at you if you make something that doesn't taste good. I'll only get mad at you if you make something that's unhealthy. But I'm not out of touch.
Oh my God.
So then they go to the interview with, do you have any thoughts? Do you have any, I railroaded that part because I really was like blown away by it. Do you have any of your own thoughts? Do you have any of your own thoughts?
I have some of your thoughts. I thought it made me really sad because, I mean, it is so out of touch and yeah, people are poor.
Yeah, it's kind of a depressing episode, this one. And it ramps up to a moment I'm excited to get to. But the interview with Christiane Amanpour, so I do a segment on the show called Marsogyny, which is just a moment I'll call out where it's like, okay, he's fully like, you know, he's being so misogynistic right now. He opens the interview with Christiane Amanpour, who's probably the most, like, whatever problems I might have had, anybody might have had with some of her reporting, I would say she's definitely the most distinguished foreign correspondent in at least English media. He opens the interview and introduces her by going,
How are you doing, you glamorous, intrepid reporter?
But he says that to his male, all of his male
guests
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, he said that to Chris. When he had Chris Matthews on the 2 weeks ago, when he had him on 2 weeks ago, he was like, doesn't it suck that we ask such hard-hitting questions? Some people won't come on our show as guests. That's how it says hello to Chris Matthews. Christiane Amanpour, a 1 million times more serious person than Chris Matthews. He's like, dang, you look good even at 4:30 in the morning. He says that. She goes, it's tough to be, she goes,
4:30 in the morning is not a glamorous time. I'm pleased to be with you.
Great.
He's really 105, huh?
honey, I'm right there with you.
Incredible.
He also will insist now, somebody will do an impression of him, and he's like, I'm not that gay. As if I'm that gay. I don't sound gay. And then he'll be like, honey, I'm right there with you.
Wow. I mean, that is kind of a style of like a machismo, but from the 1940s.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to do, but unfortunately he's 5'7".
He thinks he's Frank Sinatra. I think Ronan Farrow is Bill Maher's son.
Funny.
I'm waking up.
I get it. I got here at like noon.
I didn't sleep great last night. I had night terrors again about Christiane Anapur.
Why? Because she looks so bad at 4. Oh, because she can look so good at 4:30 in the morning. It's a lot to live up to.
I don't know. You can cut that out. Cut
Listen,
the whole thing out.
Andrea,
We're gonna re-record this anyway.
Andrea, you look great. You're a beautiful young woman.
I'm an intrepid reporter, and so are you. You're a glamorous, intrepid podcaster.
Do you have any thoughts on this interview? This interview was so bad.
I thought it was really boring.
So he. Oh, so this is the part.
And I also thought that she just kind of talked, like, I mean, yeah, credit to her being up at 4:30 or whatever, but she just sort of like talked indefinitely.
Well, part of the problem is he didn't ask her questions.
You're right.
Like, so she kind of just had to be like, I guess I'll just do the standard thing.
Yeah.
Because next he says to her, this is the worst part. He asks her, which country is the worst country you've been to? Like, that's a helpful question. I'm sure she's going to answer that so that the next time she's in, like, Sudan, somebody tries to kill her over this.
Yeah.
People famously love it in incredibly war-torn countries. They love it when some rich British person is on TV being like, the Sudan is a toilet and I hate it there. She talks, and when he asks her that, she's like, well, look, each country has its own difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them are in such conflict, it's difficult to operate safely anywhere. Some places like the Sudan just has no infrastructure right now, so it's difficult just to operate. She answers that question properly,
right?
Not in the way he wants. And then he goes,
You always look happy when you're over there. You never look like someone who's going, God, I can't find skincare products. And, you know, what keeps you going over there? You just love it, don't you?
Cringe. There's no other word for it. This makes me cringe. It's embarrassing.
Oh my God. Why does she agree to go on?
because it's a high-profile show. And, like, again, it's like, there's not...
But she's a CNN foreign correspondent. Doesn't she have more important things to do?
I'm sure they were
Why
like...
not sleep?
I'm sure they were like, you go on this show. You got to go on and talk about this. Because I think he even says, like, we've been trying to get her for, like, there are some people he'll be like, we've tried forever to get you. And it's like, I'm sure right now at this moment when his show is at, like, the zenith of its relevancy, you know, the people at CNN are like, you have to go on Real Time. Like, we could really use...
She also was probably, like, wanting to write a book at some point, and...
Yeah, you endear yourself to him now, and then in the future you can reach out and be like, can I plug my book on your show? And it's not like a world where, like, I think I just watched Hassan Piker on Pod Save America, and it is the kind of thing, watching that, it's like I don't remember what it was like to exist in a world where this kind of thing just didn't exist.
Yeah. Like,
it was so, there were just like 7 voices that kind of controlled everything.
Right.
And for better or for worse, we're not in that world now. Okay. He also says, he's like, so the green zone, even the green zone in Iraq, it's going so bad. He goes, the green zone was supposed to be our safe space, our mosque, somewhere we could run into and we could be on base. He's referencing last week, he was mad because America won't bomb mosques. So he's like, you know, some wanted Al-Qaeda guy will just run into a mosque and, he's safe. He's safe. He's not in it anymore. We won't show the necessary strength. So
But haven't we bombed mosques? Don't we give billions of dollars to Israel to bomb mosques?
Sure. At this point, we wouldn't do it ourselves, which I also don't believe. I'm sure we had bombed some mosques.
I'm sure we
at this
have.
point. We bombed weddings. I'm sure we were doing mosques. But, like, this is his new thing. If you don't watch every week, you wouldn't know. He'd say that and you'd be like, what? What does that mean?
Yeah.
But he gets these things that crawl so far up his ass.
Well, he also just hates Muslims so much.
Oh.
He would never say, like, why don't we bomb synagogues?
No. I mean, he literally says things like, Israel's never done anything wrong. So, like, fundamentally, it's in his belief system that, like, that would never be necessary for any reason. It's not picking up, Bogey is snoring and has been snoring for the last while. And this is kind of like, Meltdown Comics used to be a big performance space, but they had a cricket problem there. So sometimes you'd be doing your jokes and you'd be like, I do feel like I'm in hell right now. And I'm getting a bit of that vibe right now. Because I always fear, I'm like, this show's like, it's run so long. Is this interesting to everybody? And then I just have the voice of like snoring in my left ear.
And he's in what looks like a very uncomfortable armchair.
No, this looks like animals love a space that's a little too
Tight.
small.
Yeah, it's.
But
It's their version of a cropped tee.
So they talk about the green zone for a bit. He's not really asking her questions, so she's just doing the spiel. We had talked about that. He ends the interview. He's like,
Seems to be such a disconnect between people like you, who have been there, who are insightful and knowledgeable, and what the president says. I mean, can you switch it around? Wait a second. Can you imagine if you, Christiane Amanpour, were saying what Bush said? What if you were there for CNN or 60 Minutes and said, Christiane, what do you think of what's going on there? And you said, well, they hate us for our freedom. I mean, I'm just saying, if you said the things George Bush said, they would call Bellevue.
and he says that as if it's some incredible point, and it's like, well, she's a journalist, and he's a politician running for re-election. Like, I'm not a fan of George Bush, but why the fuck would George Bush come out 2 months before an election and go, everything is fucked there, and we blew it? That would not be a smart move. So he has this whole question. He goes on like a long rant about it. She kind of gives an answer, and then he just goes,
I just had to get that off my chest.
thanks for joining us. And the interview ends. What is the point of something like this? Like this interview, what would you say? What do you think he thinks the point of this is?
I think the point is that he thinks that surrounding himself with intelligent people who have the right credentials increases his credentials, and the interview isn't really the point. The point is, oh, I've talked to this reporter. Like, he goes on to laud Thomas Friedman. He's like, why can't Thomas Friedman run for president?
Okay, so that's literally the next thing. And what it is it's not run for president. It's, he goes, Bush says he doesn't read the paper. He has been talking about this for literally 2 months. In an interview, George Bush said, I don't read the newspaper. And so he did this segment where he's like, I do a thing every week where I read George Bush the newspaper. Often he would not then read from the newspaper. He would just like summarize what a story was. So he wasn't even doing his own bit. Then he stopped doing the bit, but he would keep referencing it. And in the middle of that, he's like, yesterday, Laura Bush said in an interview, of course he reads the newspaper. We read the newspaper together every morning in bed. And so he's like, he read that from the newspaper, and he goes, so look, if George Bush read the newspaper, he'd know he reads the newspaper. And I remember being like, that's a great way to end this. This bit has sucked, but that's actually kind of a funny way to end this with the line, if George Bush read the newspaper, he'd know he reads the newspaper. Yeah. He keeps doing it, keeps referencing it, doesn't acknowledge that clearly George Bush does read the newspaper. He says that here. He's like, he says he doesn't read the paper.
If I had to say one thing to the president, it would be, you know what? Christiane Amanpour and Tom Friedman and Fareed Zakaria, these are not your enemies, Mr. President. These are people who want what's best for the United States, who've been over there, who know what's going on. Use them.
And it's just like, he goes, they want the same thing as you to help this country. It's like, have you considered George Bush and that administration isn't actually trying to help the country?
He talks so much about the Bush administration and Iraq for, seasons of this show, and then never addresses maybe like why would behoove them personally to be in Iraq.
But he does. The other thing he's kind of good at making fun of is oh my God, Cheney's company that got Halliburton. He's made so many jokes about Halliburton, about this being about getting Halliburton money.
So then why does he act confused as to why we're in Iraq? It's like, know that Bush is smarter than he leads on. This, dumb Texan persona is a really effective bit, and here's someone who thinks that they see through everything, and he clearly doesn't. Like,
he has that goldfish brain thing where he'll be like they're all lying. It's just to get Halliburton money, and then the next segment he'll be like, the president wants what's best for the country, so why can't he see this is what's best for the country?
Brain.
It's really strange.
It's nuts.
It's really weird. the thing about Bush, it made me realize the one story I've heard about George Bush that I liked was one time he paused a briefing in the White House so he could watch a helicopter that was landing kick a bunch of snow up onto White House reporter. Like
That's
the White House
so
press,
funny.
it was like a bunch of snow was getting kicked up on them by helicopters, and Bush was like, hold on a second, I want to watch these assholes get snow all over them.
That's really funny.
It's like mean nicknames. Like it's, he's another guy. It's like if George Bush had just been a guy, we'd all be like, isn't that one of the funniest guys
well,
ever?
Donald Trump, unfortunately, is the funniest guy.
He is also a serial rapist is the issue.
Donald Trump?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well,
dude,
that part isn't funny.
No, right. But like, dude, when he said everything is computer yesterday.
Oh, I didn't catch that. That's so true, though. Everything is computer.
When he was buying a Tesla from Elon Musk, one of the things he says, they're like,
Why do you say it with a Z?
What, Tesla?
Yeah, there it is again.
It's a regional dialect. It's called Canada.
What region?
Alberta?
You don't live there anymore.
Yeah, but I can't kick some Alberta stuff.
They say their S's as Z's?
I could also just be stupid. That's possible, too.
I don't think it's that.
Tesla,
but I do think you're very sad.
Hold on. This is not about me. He bought a Tesla yesterday to try to boost the stock back up. And one of the things the press sycophants they brought, one of them is like, Mr. President, you're the master of the art of the deal. Are you going to be getting a deal on this? And Trump went, no, I will be paying full price for this. And then he's like, oh, it's a beautiful car, wonderful car, the best cars. And then they open the door and he gets inside and he goes, wow, look at everything is computer.
I love that. That's so funny.
But you can tell
Why
how...
can't he just be funny?
You can tell how like diminished he is now because he's kind of in there looking at everything and then he very nervously goes, you don't want me to drive it, do you? Because he doesn't know how to drive. And
he does know how to drive. There's that video of him driving in Barron and Melania and listening to Taylor Swift in silence.
He maybe that was a while ago. He said he has not driven a car in over a decade.
Huh.
And like you'd expect the first
you know
term.
The clip I'm talking about? It's very eerie. They're driving at night. They're listening to a popular Taylor Swift song. I think Barron is maybe in the front seat. Melania's in the back seat filming.
He probably was already too tall to ride in the back, Barron Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know that clip, but I feel like I can picture the exact clip you're describing.
It's unnerving.
Right. Okay. So he says that about because this segue is sort of broadly about the war. Oh my God! During the segue, he opens by going, Donald Rumsfeld said, as sort of why they believe Iraq will get under control. Rumsfeld said, at some point the Iraqis will get tired of getting killed. That's the most psychotic thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's how they talk about Palestinians too.
I guess with the Palestinians, it's more cruel. Like it's more like they deserve to die. They made this happen because they love Hamas. In a case like this, it's like a weird thing where he's talking about them like they're like deer. Like, well, eventually enough deer will die off that they won't have the overpopulation problem and nature will be like he's talking about them like they're just like animals in the woods or something. Like they don't have any thoughts that they're doing. It's just like an extremely bone-chilling quote. And then they immediately move to Putin canceled democracy, which he did do. Any thoughts on the brief conversation about Putin canceling democracy?
No.
So here's my big one, and we talked about this before we started. And I know why you missed this because he was in the middle of like blathering on and on. He's essentially saying like, he's like, yeah, and the reason Vladimir Putin, please, I should show some respect. The reason he pushed
which one are you talking about?
The reason, Jeff Putin, the reason he pushed the election was he said there was, there had been the I think there was the theater that a Chechen terrorist group took over and the Russian military gassed the theater and killed everybody. Just killed everyone in it.
Oh my God.
It was not on purpose.
Oh my God.
So I think he postponed the elections under the idea of like, there's too much terrorism right now. And Bill Maher's like, that's unacceptable. And then he goes,
because let's face it, that Chechnya thing, yeah, they're Muslims, but it's not really that. It's more about they want their independence. Yes, there is a tangential relationship to the Muslim problem.
Oh my
But it's not.
Just like there is a tangential relation in Iraq, but it's not the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is over-religious Muslims, many of whom need to be killed.
And then he just moves on. Nobody pushes back on this at all.
Why didn't Cornel West push back? He probably was like, everything these guys are saying is nuts, and I have to pick my battles.
I think a part of it is just sort of general politeness. It's the idea at the time, the like energy and the feeling in the country at the time of like, we are under attack and Muslims are trying to kill us. So I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, look, Cornel West earlier said, like, we all participate in these systems. So maybe Cornel West was feeling a little nervous. Maybe he didn't have time. But that's like one of those things he occasionally says where I'm like, hold on. This is like unacceptable for any era of time. Like, to literally refer to it as the Muslim problem.
Oh, my God.
And also,
we need reparations for anyone who's Muslim who lived through 2001 to, I'm not even going to put an end date on it.
to question mark?
Yeah.
Like a birthday party invitation, 9 a.m. to question mark?
Yeah, anyone who was Muslim from 2001 to 10 p.m.
Yeah, like, well, cool party. I guess I put mine, the start time was 9 a.m. It's also this weird, clearly he is saying they're not really Muslim because they're like white passing.
Yeah, that's what I took that.
Like a lot of Chechens have like red hair or like light brown. Like I think they qualify as like Caucasian on census and stuff. But like it's one of those things he says and I'm like, I don't really know how to respond to something like this. Like I don't know that there's a joke to be made. Like I guess I'll just catalog it and move on. You are
Bogey's so bored right now.
Bogey, it's important to talk about these things. He's too young. He didn't live through 9/11
It might be a stress
aftermath.
response. You don't know. My dogs are pretty old. A lot of them might have.
Yeah, this is the youngest dog you've ever had, and he's only 17. And then, oh God.
I think Bill Maher thinks that every dispute is about religion and not land.
He does think it's always about. He said religion is the root of all problems. He says homophobia, that is just because the Bible says don't be queer, which is not what it says in the Bible. But he'll be like, it says don't be queer in the Bible. That's where it comes from. As if, I mean, he is homophobic. So where does his homophobia come from if the Bible is the cause of all of it? And this segment ends with PG O'Rourke. Julie Delphi says something about the UN, and they should have gone in with the UN to Iraq or something, and PG O'Rourke goes,
I don't want the United Nations running everything. I was doing a story about the United Nations.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
And
I was in their cafeteria, and they had bagels and butter. No cream cheese. Bagels and butter. You wonder why these people can't settle things in the Middle East? They had bagels and butter. It doesn't work.
But then he also kept repeating that. Like it was a stupid thing to say.
You want those people to run things? Bagels and butter, no cream cheese.
Who cares?
That is like the general
sweet
vibe. That's the general vibe from the audience. Is they're just
relaxed.
They're like, okay, yeah, yeah, the most peaceful sleep of their entire lives. So then we get to new rules.
Do-do-do.
So we do I make
song?
the guests do the song.
I love the song.
New rules. Any general thoughts on new rules before I go through each individual new rule?
They were so forgettable. Like I finished the episode this morning and I had to watch it in 3 segments because it was so psychologically trying, and I don't even remember it.
So yeah, I feel like they've been a real quite boring lately. So the first one is new rule.
Let someone else in Florida hand out the bottled water.
It's just about George Bush being there with FEMA handing out bottles of water and how he should be, I guess, in the White House running things. He's like, there's a war going bad and you're giving out bottles of water.
Yeah, it's stupid.
New rule.
Stop building fuck you mobiles.
So, okay, I'm starting to understand why I liked this in high school.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, it is infuriating to see these huge vehicles. And I think when you're that age, you're just angry all the time. And so to hear someone in a position of power voice it is kind of comforting.
It's like an introduction to
Yes.
this kind of conversation.
Yes.
And
nowadays I have, more like language and education about like why they're harmful or whatever. But yeah, I don't think I was 15 going, haha, it is a fuck mobile or a fuck you mobile. It's just.
he also, I think he's done almost this exact New Rule before. Because I'm positive he has referred to them as fuck you mobiles during New Rules in the past.
It's just not like funny. It's not a pun. It's not.
Yeah. And then
It's
at the
nothing.
end, and then at the end, it's like the final punchline is like, guys who drive these have small dicks. It's like, okay, how many times do I need to hear this?
No,
joke?
I think the joke at the end was like, you can watch the ozone falling. You can watch the sky falling from your sunroof or something.
Oh, maybe I just got so hung up on once again hearing the exact same joke about these guys having small dicks that I missed it.
I think Bill Maher thinks that being right is the same thing as being funny.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And it's not true.
And he also is often not right.
He's often not right. But he is funny.
New rule.
Stop with the Taxachusetts.
What was that? I think
They were saying John Kerry was from the state of Taxachusetts. So if you want your taxes to go up, vote for
Who's
John
they
Kerry.
were saying?
Like the Republican,
Okay.
the party in their like media
Yeah.
hacks.
Uh-huh.
And Bill Maher is like, 11 states have higher taxes than Massachusetts, including Tennessee. So we're going to start calling it Taxacy or Tenax. I don't remember what it was unwieldy. And it's just like, yeah, sure. Like, you're right. Political messaging is not true. Great observation. Like, it's just got to be better. It's got to be funnier.
you got to
than that.
write on the show. You got to get a job writing on the show.
I submitted to write on the show in 2009, I think. Yeah, I sent in a
And
packet.
did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. That's why I'm at work right now.
Oh, because this to me is work.
I guess I am kind of at work. New rule. Forgot how to do this. New rule.
Don't do things that feed the negative stereotype people have about your ethnic group.
That one was crazy.
So, yeah, essentially to be like, hey, stop making me be racist.
And then doesn't he turn to Cornel West and say sorry? I don't think they showed who he was saying that to.
There's a joke at the end about the French. It's like, if you're
okay.
French, I don't remember what he says, and then
Yeah.
he looks at Julie
I'm
Delphi
so
and
sorry,
apologizes. But this is the negative stereotype thing. It's like a Latino guy who was like throwing chairs at a sporting event.
Yeah.
And the negative ethnic stereotype is they're hot-blooded. And it's like, well, every race fights. It's like, I was sure it would be something more specific is what he would get to. But then I was
Yeah.
like, what people don't fight at sporting events? Come on, stop it.
Cut that out. No, really, cut it out.
So Andrea didn't actually say anything bad there. I just made that edit to see if she really isn't going to listen to the episode. And if I never hear from her, I will assume she did not. The last one, new rule, stop refighting the Vietnam War on the campaign trail and let's refight it where it'll do some good. Vietnam. Now, this is his fun, silly one, which is a facetious argument to reinvade Vietnam in modern day now and go back and finally win the war.
Was everyone during that election talking about Vietnam?
Yes, because of Swift Boat.
What's Swift Boat?
That was the thing they did to John Kerry, because he had like 3 Purple Hearts or something. Because he had some crazy thing where it's like he rushed. There was like a Viet Cong with like a grenade launcher, and he rushed him and killed him and saved essentially his entire unit before the guy could. It was like one of those things where it's like, yeah, you like get a big medal for that. It's a pretty crazy thing to think about and be like, I don't know if I don't think I would rush towards the guy.
I'd run away. I'd be like, why am I here?
So they had a smear campaign, and the guy who was doing it tried to do it in the 70s. The first time John Kerry rose to national prominence as a critic of the war after he came back from it. So it was the thing where it's like, oh, he's this big voice against the war because he's a hero in the war. And he's saying, we're doing war crimes.
Yeah.
I did unacceptable things. Everybody's doing unacceptable things there. It is immoral what we're doing. And the guy who tried to smear him for the Nixon campaign failed. They brought him back 30 years later, and he succeeded in smearing John Kerry and like destroying his reputation as a quote unquote war hero. Because like it worked in 2004.
How did they smear his reputation?
They were like, oh, we talked to other people. He lied about these details. He's lying about all the bad things that supposedly happened. He was actually a coward. At the RNC, all the Republicans there at the convention had Purple Heart bandages on their face to like make fun of him. It's like really crazy. And
oh my God.
So that's why Vietnam is back in the news again, because, you know, it worked this time. And so it's just about reinvading Vietnam. It's kind of this like ironic tongue-in-cheek thing. But at one point, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I'm just in shock.
Yeah. That was kind of that and John Kerry's horrific campaign were the two death blows to John Kerry in 2004. At one point during this bit, P.G. O'Rourke goes,
I'm with you. The food is good. The girls are pretty. Why not?
And it's like, what a weird thing to say about a country, to be like, the girls are pretty. And I'm sure people talked like that in 2004. But also, that implies that there are countries where you think the girls aren't pretty. Good Lord. That to me suggests that there are countries where you think the girls aren't pretty. And then that, to me, creates a lot of concern about P.J. O'Rourke's, I guess, personal beliefs. If he's like, well, there are races of people who are ugly. So what do you mean the girls are pretty in Vietnam? Like, it also makes me think, like, did P.J. O'Rourke do like sex tourism in like Vietnam?
That might be a stretch, but he might want to, whereas I don't know that he would necessarily want to do sex tourism in Iraq.
Right. Maybe that's his coded way of saying he'd like to do it. If he had just been like, hey, the food is great, I'm in favor, I would have been like, I mean, that's not very funny, but whatever, that's pretty innocuous. But it's because it's normal to prefer some countries and regional cuisines to others. But I just think it's weird to, even if you do, to just openly admit like, well, I'm incredibly attracted to Vietnamese women.
Goddamn you!
Full Vietnamese.
Girls, do it to me every time.
So we should invade Vietnam. It's an incredibly weird offhand remark he makes.
He gets off with way too much I really wish someone during the episode had just been like, why are you saying the things you're saying and then laughing like that? Like, do you believe what you're saying?
At least get some laughs. If you're going to be a weird creep, if you're going to be weird, like...
Why are you saying weird things that aren't funny?
Hit somewhere. Hit something. Succeed at something.
But when I looked him up, it said he was a political satirist.
Everybody, I know lots of people who insist like he was very funny, but like when it's like they were very funny in the 70s. It's like, oh, what did they like put a bee costume on and fucking wander around Studio H? Like, humor is one of those things that evolves so much where there'll be like, he was the most groundbreaking political satirist. And it's like, oh yeah, he called the president gay or whatever. And it would like scandalize the nation in 1961. Like, I don't know that this would hold up so well. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be where he's struggling. He's still, much like Bill Maher now, he is still doing the exact kind of humor.
Well, actually, he's dead of a very preventable rectal cancer.
A very preventable self-suck accident.
Yeah.
I'm saying in 2004, I think he was still doing the same kind of comedy he would have been writing at the Lampoon in the 70s. And it's like Bill Maher now is still doing the exact same same kind of comedy he was doing in the 90s.
Right, except his politics have moved way to the right.
Yeah. No, they haven't. He hasn't changed.
Everyone
You've
else
changed.
has.
The left has changed.
He didn't abandon the party. The party abandoned him.
I mean, he hasn't abandoned the party because he still votes for Democrats, but he thinks
But I'm sure he thinks that the party
He hates them. He
is too left.
Complains about them all the time. He hates them so much more than he hates the Republicans. Except he'll be like, they need to run John Fetterman for president.
Yeah.
You know a guy who's at the peak of his popularity right now? John Fetterman.
And at his brain capacity. Talk about a stroke victim.
Can we have a break from presidents with like severe like mental cognitive problems? I'd love a break from 3 straight terms of this shit. Any final thoughts on the show? Because that's the whole show.
I'm sorry I was tired. Would love to re-record later today.
Don't do this to me.
I am still, I guess I was hoping that I would understand why you're doing this podcast after recording the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have more questions than I did before.
Okay, well, you can ask those questions once. Before we get to that, how much psychic damage would you say this episode caused you?
I mean, a lot, but I also think that it's not done yet. Like, I think there will be residual damage as well. This might creep into my dreams. I might see Christiane Amanpour on TV or something and have a flashback.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that sounds great because she's a real glamorous gal.
Hey, she's an intrepid reporter and a glamorous gal.
Out of 5.
Out of 5, say a 3.
All right. You want to know? So I think the reason I do this is because I am kind of an obsessive, and if Bill Maher had been stopped at some point, if his show had been canceled, if there had been a cultural acknowledgement and also like essentially in like the higher levels of media, an acknowledgement of like, this guy sucks and this has never been very good. Mm-hmm. It was just the best we had. Mm-hmm. And now we don't need this shit because it's dog shit. I wouldn't have to do this. He has continued to maintain the same level of like success and sort of like kind of reputational clout exclusively with the like upper echelons of legacy media. And it makes me crazy that this guy who isn't good at anything, and he doesn't know anything anymore either. He's wrong constantly. Just on at one point the Biden administration was going to put in a regulation. All cars had to have sensors installed in them that would tell you if you had left your child in the car, in the back seat. And he did a thing where he was like, this is so stupid. Like, the only people who leave their babies in the car are crackheads and people who want to kill their baby.
Oh, that's terrible.
And all the evidence shows.
Yeah, it's not true.
It's people whose routines...
Who are tired and their routine is disrupted.
I was so infuriated because it's like if you like stumbled upon that while you were haunted, possibly for your whole, like you have this grief your whole life.
Yeah.
And the story in the Washington Post that talked about it, one of them is like the grandparents that did it. One couple, they'd struggled for like years to have kids.
I read that story. And the one about the Russian adoptee where Russia, so do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
There was a family who finally was able to adopt. They adopted a child from Russia, and yet it was something where like the routine was disrupted. Parents are so tired. I mean, you're running on fumes. Something happened. The child was left in the car and died, and Russia changed its rules where now Americans cannot adopt.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't.
And that man lives with that for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. And it's like, and then on top of that, you've got this fucking smug prick on television making the statement that is not only wrong, but so unbelievably cruel for
really
no reason.
cruel.
What does he fucking care if they put sensors in the backseat of a car? What does that have anything to do with him? He exists exclusively in his own world, and he's so horrible, and there have never been any consequences for it. And I cannot let go of it.
But don't you think the consequence is that he's deeply unhappy?
It's not enough for me. It's not enough for me because I want, on some level, I'm like, at least I will have created some sort of historical record to go like, this was a mistake. To like elevate this guy like this was a mistake. And to never really call him on any of this, to never question him on any, to just let him keep getting away with it this whole time. It makes no sense to me. And fundamentally, I am a very right-brained person, if that's even true. And like, I need order. I can't handle when something doesn't make sense like this. Because it's just like, how can this keep happening with this guy? Like,
but what about all of the people who were exposed to like a progressive guest and then were radicalized? Like, I do think that a lot of my politics were informed by this show initially, and then I went on to, like learn more and abandoned him. I mean, the fact that there was like a left-wing show like this that criticized the Bush administration.
I mean, it was nominally left-wing, because I will also say he was in favor of invading North Korea instead of Iraq.
Well, that's fun. Because he liked the women.
You're thinking PJ O'Rourke. Because he's racist and he thinks they all look the same.
Yeah.
I took the heat off myself with that one.
There you go.
It's I don't deny like the value that this had at the time, but this
and
stuff,
also like watching someone lose their show on ABC for saying that he understands why 9/11, why the Taliban did 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like
I think that had impact.
It's that stuff is, and I mean, a part of the show too is like I also watched Bill Maher. I also was a Real Time fan for a long time, and it's not like if I could go back
up until a few months ago.
The first half of the show, the hate was in quotation marks in the title, and I had to get rid of them after I reached a certain point. The show had value, and I wouldn't go back in time and delete its existence, but I went back to the start because it's also to like look at the fact that like all of the shit was also already here, of like the guy. This man would eventually become, and also already always was. And that statement of like, this was the only show doing this, that's also an indictment of the culture at the time.
Yeah.
Like some people have told me they like the show because it's a weird historical record, because what he covers is pretty mainstream stuff. So talking about what he talks about on the show is also like people are getting to remember like what was in the zeitgeist at the time, where the zeitgeist was much smaller and more compact, what people were talking about.
I think I just didn't have access to The Daily Show and The Colbert Report for some reason.
Really?
Or I don't know why I didn't
HBO is
watch
harder
it.
to get than Comedy Central's basic cable.
I don't know why I didn't watch. I mean, that seems more ideologically in line with...
Well, it might be, I think, but also like those two shows were more comedy than politics. Like the shows are those Colbert and The Daily Show were both so much funnier than Real Time.
Yeah.
And it was...
Yeah, I don't think I was watching it for the comedy. I think I was just like, I know that Bush is bad. I want to know why,
Well, now you know. Because of this episode.
Yeah, but now I've come around.
I just love those paintings. So, Andrea, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Yes, I'd love for everyone to, if their landlord uses a leaf blower, employs gardeners who use leaf blowers, if they could do some research into just how bad leaf blowers are for our environment. The stat I read is that running a gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour emits the same air pollution as driving from Los Angeles to Denver.
Oh my God. I did find out, Jess told me why nobody uses electric ones, and it's because the batteries aren't, the battery quality is not good enough yet. So like to do a full day of like yard work,
you'd have to have multiple batteries.
You'd have to swap out the batteries something like 14 times.
I really think the solution is just leaving leaves on the ground. I mean, people say, oh, you can use a rake, but that does cause, that's just so much more labor for the workers. Anyway, gas-powered leaf blowers are destroying my quality of life. And I'd love, and then watch Stick on Apple TV in June with Owen Wilson, because I'm in an episode.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, anything else? I cut you off because I was curious why.
Just the leaf blowers are really if I had to pick one.
I mean, it's very fair.
And they're illegal to use in Los Angeles and have been since 1998.
They're fucking terrible, but they smell great.
They do actually smell really good.
Oh.
And that sound is so nice.
I guess I forgot what I always plug.
What do you have to plug?
Right. So you can rate and review the podcast wherever, I don't know, Apple, Spotify. Apple, if I'd appreciate reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, because I think I'm tied with Club Random right now.
Is that true?
Only in the score. He has thousands of reviews. I have, I think, 89 at the moment, but I'm killing him on Spotify. Spotify, Club Random is like a 3.9 average rating. Like people clearly brigade the show to give it a really low rating.
Huh.
Gavin Newsom's podcast has like a 2.2 or something. Because conservatives hate him.
He's just starting out.
Conservatives hate him.
It takes a while to...
This will never work. His plan will never work because he is like the number one like boogeyman of conservatives in this country. He's out of his mind if he thinks.
Or is he the bogeyman?
I could never imagine Gavin Newsom sleeping so peacefully.
Yeah, well.
I also don't think he looks as good in a sweater, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, you have to explain to your listeners. So I put my pit bulls in sweaters.
It's,
it's to make them look less intimidating.
Yeah, you got to cover up that big chest they have.
Although one time Colin went after a mailman in that same sweater.
Well, he hates public unions. So that's the show. You can also support the show on Patreon.
What do you get added benefits as a Patreon subscriber?
3 to 4 bonus episodes a month. There's
Am
a
I going to
Discord.
be a bonus episode?
What?
Am I going to be a bonus episode?
This is a main feed episode.
Whoa! What type of people? What's the caliber of people who are
on the Patreon? It's people who've done the main feed, and I bring them back. Generally, I think only Diego. Diego is the only Patreon only because I don't think he would be willing to watch an episode of the show. But but he was willing to watch Bill Maher's first appearance on Joe Rogan.
Oh, what was that episode like?
Not good. Really, it was boring because it was like 2020 and Joe Rogan was like old Rogan, where it was just like boring.
Yeah.
And then over the span of there's 3 total, and over the span of them, he gets crazier and like the takes get like hotter and hotter from them.
Oof.
One episode, Joe Rogan is like, maybe it would be good if fathers watched pornography with their teenage sons to kind of clarify what's going on with them. And then he's like, I know that's like illegal to show a 13-year-old pornography, but maybe it would be a good idea.
Oh my God.
So that's the show. Thanks so much for listening. But before I go, last question I ask everybody. Andrea More, do you hate Bill Maher?
I feel sorry for Bill Maher.
Okay. That's an interesting spin on an old classic. Thanks so much for listening, and good night and good luck.